Hey everyone, if you are tuning in, we are, and you're wondering if you're at the right place, we are running the info session right now for the MPhil in Digital Humanities at the University of Cambridge. And so if that is what you intended to be here for, you are in the right place. We have about 27 of you attending at the moment. And I'll be starting us off shortly. But before I do, I just wanted to give a brief overview of what we'll be doing today. So first of all, thank you so much all for joining. Really appreciate your interest. Today's session is intended to give you an overview of the program, what we offer, what the center looks like, how we think about digital humanities, and we'll be taking questions and trying to answer them to the best of our ability at the end of our initial presentation. So if you just ensure that you're using the Q&A function within Teams to leave your questions that you might have, then we'll get back to them at the end of the session and answer them to the best of our abilities. If you have particular questions to particular individuals that are present here, please do feel free to point that out within your question. That makes it easier for us to moderate that part of it. If that all sounds clear, we'll just get started. So I'm just going to try sharing my screen, and this is usually where Microsoft Teams falls apart. Can I just get oral confirmation from one of my colleagues? Yeah, great, perfect. Thank you. Right, so welcome to our info session. So what is CDH? CDH is Cambridge Digital Humanities. We think about and develop digital humanities scholarship from across the arts and humanities, and we do so in quite interdisciplinary and critical ways. Oftentimes, the questions that we deal with at Cambridge Digital Humanities explore a number of different disciplines in addition to thinking through digital humanities methods and theory, and also talk about and dialogue across emerging technologies and issues that are quite relevant today, things like questions of generative AI, what it means for the arts, what it means for society, how we engage with both the critical usage of, for example, generative AI tools, as well as the interrogation of them. And these areas are typically explored both through our interdisciplinary faculty at Cambridge Digital Humanities, as well as through our partners from across the university and beyond. I'll go through this in a moment, but we do work extensively with the Cambridge University
Sorry,
libraries.
Matt,
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I can see the PowerPoint still loading. It did like share your screen. So I don't know if you want to try resharing the PowerPoint.
How is this?
Yeah, that's great.
Yep. Great. Perfect. Thank you. So as I was saying, we work across a number of different departments and centers, including within Cambridge. We work together with the University Library. We work together with various different collections, both within Cambridge and beyond. And we work across departments and centers through our international partnerships as well. Some of the things that you can expect to find at Cambridge Digital Humanities is really quite an expansive, and as I said before, critical understanding of the digital humanities. So that means, we think about literature as digital humanities. We go through the critical explorations of how digital humanities has been grappled with, both as, for example, as service, but also as a potentially critical tradition. We dialogue across post-colonial theory, critical media theorizations. We think about emerging technologies, machine learning, both the engagement with the practices as well as the critical dissections of them. But we also think about digital infrastructures and space. And we'll talk about this a lot more as we get into some of our introductions to our faculty. So in addition to the MPhil and PhD programs, which Cambridge Digital Humanities houses, so to be clear, we house a MPhil program and a PhD program. We don't offer undergraduate courses. We have sort of three buckets of offerings. One is our people. So we have, of course, our faculty, but also academic visitors who come from different institutions from around the world, carry out parts of their research within Cambridge Digital Humanities, usually in collaboration with our faculty and others. We have fellowships. These can come usually through funds and grants that are specific to the digital humanities or that could benefit from being placed within digital humanities. And we've got a methods fellowship program, which really fosters the development of methodological approaches that draw on critical digital humanities. And Methods Fellows will be hosting a new cohort that is coming in imminently for this year. Now, we also have our bucket of projects. So that includes funded research projects that come out of larger research collaborations, as well as individual research funds. We host large roundtables and project incubation sessions for folks that are thinking about setting up research projects or applying to funds. And usually there's a lot of support to gain from within Cambridge Digital Humanities towards that end. And then we run learning and events, and that includes our flagship CDH Open Research Seminar, which are seminars that are available to our broader research community and that we encourage our MPhil students and PhD community to attend. They usually involve academics that are both based within Cambridge and beyond, who in some ways engage with critical digital humanities and beyond, and oftentimes give us real insight into some of their cutting edge research that they're carrying out, sometimes before they've even published. And it gives us an opportunity as a broader community of critical digital humanities folks to engage with that research early on. We offer short courses and learning programs as well. I should say we offer short courses through our learning programs, which my colleague Anne Alexander and Eleanor Dare are a part of running in particular. You may have heard of the Social Data School as well as a Cultural Heritage Data School, which we run as a part of that. Now, I should say that Cambridge Digital Humanities sort of occupies a slightly unique position insofar as it is technically housed within the Faculty of English. And so if you've been wondering how we sit within the broader Cambridge infrastructure, just a fair warning that the broader Cambridge infrastructure is confusing to begin with at the best of times. But to clarify things, we as CDH are positioned within the Faculty of English, but we work very closely with CRASH, so the Center for Research in the Arts, Social Sciences, and Humanities, as well as the University of Cambridge libraries and many other departments of faculties. So we have faculty members within Cambridge Digital Humanities that are closely associated, for example, with film, with sociology, with politics, and we can touch upon that as well as we introduce some of our colleagues on the team. So what is digital humanities? So it encompasses a broad set of scholarship that often also doesn't necessarily agree with itself. So digital humanities really encompasses work on cultural, social, and epistemic impacts of digital technologies. It deals with broad questions around data, its impacts on everyday life in relation to both literary, cultural forms, medium studies, including issues around technocratic rationality, power, justice, and inequality. And typically, you'll get a broad range of different skills within a program that focuses on digital humanities that includes exposure to digital research methodologies, computational humanities, digital libraries, and archival-based research. We'll have also folks that come from an artistic tradition who bring in digital performance and exhibition approaches, including from cultural institutions and, broadly speaking, the GLAM industries. And we'll be looking at also research exploring cultural and social impact of emerging technologies. I mentioned before some of the questions that are critically emerging in a context of new AI developments, but also around things like facial recognition, automatic writing, surveillance, robotics, etc. So we have a fairly vibrant research community, graduate research community within CDH. As a part of that, we offer the CDH Open Research Seminars, which I mentioned before, they're a really good way of getting a flavor for how expansive and interdisciplinary digital humanities can be. And I should say, if you haven't guessed already, if you don't come from a digital humanities background, which many people coming into the MPhil program often don't be alarmed. You bring your disciplines with you, and in so doing, you are enriching the program as well as the discipline of digital humanities itself. So one way of thinking through what digital humanities could look like for you is having a look at some of our past open research seminars. You'll see that there is a wide variety of thinking that touches on or utilizes enthusiastically the digital humanities. A snapshot of some of our previous talks include, for example, Maria Georgiou, who has covered critical praxis around both resistance and everyday life in digital cities. We've got work by Rupika Rusam on digital borders and digital bodies. There's work on learning experiments in computer vision and visual literacy, machine learning and political orders, social history of artificial intelligence by Matteo Pasqualini. There is a number of different ways in which we engage with digital humanities, and I think that comes through in no better form than in our research seminars, in addition to, of course, the many visitors and fellows and faculty that we harbor from a wide variety of research backgrounds. We have a number of resources that you can draw on to get a better sense of what we do at CDH and how we intersect with other parts of the university. I've left some of the links here, but you will have access, for example, to research seminars and lectures as well across different departments and faculties that you're welcome to attend. As a Cambridge MPhil student, you can always go to talks.cam.ac.uk and actually search from a broad database of talks that are available and giving at the university to expose you to as many of the offerings that are available at the university broadly. So now to our teaching team at Digital Humanities. So Anne, who is not with us today, Dr. Anne Alexander, is a senior research associate and the director of the learning programs. Her interests, amongst other things, deal with the ethics of big data, as well as, in particular, activist media in Middle East and the political economy of the internet. Anne has been working with Eleanor there, who's been leading up the Social Data School this summer. If you haven't seen the lineup, please do check it out on our website. There is a lot of really interesting methodological approaches that come from digital humanities that are being used, for example, to think through how do you carry out a digital corporate accountability investigation using some of these methods. And this is, among other things, some of the things that Anne deals with, both in her research as well as in her role as director of the learning programs. Caroline Bassett, who isn't here at the moment, is the director of Cambridge Digital Humanities and supervises across a number of areas, including in digital media arts, critical theory, automation anxiety and refusal, feminism, big data, and algorithmic justice. Caroline has a rich background and tradition in, amongst other things, thinking through media archaeology and science fiction. And for those of you that are interested in critical theory of technology and feminism in particular, as well as thinking through futures and utopianism, Caroline is a great person to pick the brains off once you're here. Jonathan, I'm going to pass it over to you to introduce yourself.
Hi, thanks, Matt. I'm Jonathan. I'm a research software engineer on the MPhil. So one of my main jobs is to support students with the technical parts of their research, both for their dissertations and for their essays written throughout the course. And we recognise that people come from all kinds of backgrounds to the MPhil. Matt's already alluded to this a bit, but people come from all kinds of disciplinary backgrounds and they have differing levels of technical experience, and that's absolutely fine. I'm here to support people whatever their previous experience is, and I really want to assure everyone today that if you don't need to be able to program, to be able to code, to apply for this course, we don't have any technical requirements in terms of your knowledge. That's not an impediment at all. So if you're interested in applying and doing the course, but you think maybe I'm not technical enough, then please don't think that. Please apply, because that is in no way a barrier. Some people come to us being able to code a bit or a lot, and that's great, but that's just one methodology within the MPhil, one thing that you can put in your application to show that you're engaged with technical things and the digital. But there are many, many ways of doing that, and programming is just one of them. So don't fixate on coding. And actually, a lot of the advice I give to students is not about programming languages per se. It's about using data or presenting data or all kinds of other things. We use the word technical on this course very, very broadly. But I'm here to try and support as much as I can with all of that. And I'll just finish by saying my kind of research interests are in minimal computing, which is really around doing as little computing as you can, and sometimes not even doing any at all, if you can get away with that. And sometimes I do actually advise the students who come to me with saying, how can I do this in Python, that actually maybe they don't need to do it in a programming language at all. Maybe they can do it with pen and paper or by reading a text or in some other way. So we're not, as Matt was talking about being critical earlier, and we're critical of methodology as well, and we're critical of the idea of simply writing a program every time you have a research question. So that's me.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Really, really helpful. Ryan Heuser is with us here. Ryan, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Yeah, so I'm Ryan Heuser. I'm an assistant professor of digital humanities here. I also run the PhD program, which it's only our second year, and the visitors program. So we have visiting academics across ranks, PhD students, postdocs, professors. My background is in English literature. So for me, a lot of DH is in digital methodologies to do literary intellectual history. I'm getting, as we all are, I suppose, more into AI, critical perspectives on AI, using AI. I'll be teaching a seminar for the MPhil this winter on generative AI. Yeah, otherwise work in what's called distant reading, so kind of large scale textual analysis of literature. And yeah.
Thank you, Ryan. Hugh, going to pass it over to you.
Hi, I'm Hugh. So I split my time across the Cambridge Digital Humanities and the University Library, where I'm the head of the Digital Library. On the course, I co-run Core Course 1 with Jonathan. So that's one of the two core courses you'll do in your first term. Core Course 1 is really about practical engagement with digital methods. So in the first instance, you'll get to do some stuff, and in a second sense about digital methods as a way of thinking through humanities research questions. It kind of goes alongside Core Course 2, which is a more theoretical framing of those things. So basically you'll do some things in Core Course 1, so you will get some hands-on experience of doing digital methods, and then you'll talk about it a bit more with Ryan and others in Core Course 2. The kinds of things that it's difficult to know how to organize that kind of course sometimes, because it's so broad, there's a lot to cover. But what we do really, we have an introductory session, and we concentrate on 4 big areas. We look at images, we look at text, we look at maps, so geography, and we look at networks. And then at the end, we kind of tie it all up with a look at artificial intelligence and the way that's now infused through everything that we do. And then in terms of my own research interests, it's really, I suppose, text encoding and questions emerging from manuscript cultures.
Thank you, Hugh. And Hugo is not here in this call today, but I wanted to introduce Hugo. Dr. Hugo Leal is the Director of Postgraduate Studies in Digital Humanities. He teaches on the MPhil, but is also associated with the Minderoo Center for Technology and Democracy, in particular around the EU Horizon project, AI for Trust. He's encouraging everyone to check it out. His work deals with the intersection of collective action and digital technologies, and he's using, in particular, network analysis models to look at how social movements are diffused across digital networks, looking at things like conspiracy theory, misinformation, and so on. You can ask Hugo about, in particular, the intersection of digital humanities and political theory and political science, as well as new media sociology, which he'll be more than enthusiastic to talk to you about. Myself, very briefly, I am Matt Mahmoudi. I am an assistant professor in digital humanities. My research focuses on redlining and resistance in digital cities, and what I refer to as the smart urban reproduction of racial capitalism. So I think through effectively how digital urban infrastructures exploit, surveil, in other ways, contain, categorize, and profit off of movement in cities, and the ways in which that intersects with critical race theory, urban studies, science and technology studies, and migration studies. We'll be actually going through some of this as a part of an optional course that I am providing, well, an option, I should say, that I'm providing next term, so it'll be in Lent term, that's called Witnessing Digital Cities, in which we'll be going through methods of interrogating space and cities, as well as bringing that back into a format that's subject to interrogation, so mapping practices and critically engaging with mapping practices as well. I come from a background in the, I nearly said, in geo-industrial complex. I was educated as a sociologist, but I worked for a long time as a researcher and advisor on artificial intelligence and human rights for Amnesty International, where my work predominantly consisted of tracing and making sense of surveillance technologies, in particular AI-driven surveillance technologies. And our newest addition, but no least, Dr. Stefan Tarnowski. Stefan, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. I am a new assistant professor of digital humanities and film and screen studies. So my teaching and also my research sort of span those two disciplines and attempt to sort of draw bridges between them. So my work goes across the fields of sort of visual culture, science and technology, and media studies, but all of it fits sort of largely within the tradition of post-colonial theory. My book, which I'm currently finishing up, is about media activism during the Syrian war and uprising. The Syrian war and uprising was the most documented in history up until the Ukrainian war, and probably now has been overtaken by the Gaza war. But I think about how media activists attempted to respond to doubts circulating around their footage, how they attempted to build truth claims about their footage through various technical and social solutions. And that means that I think about the relationship between activism and fields such as journalism, humanitarianism or human rights video, law, and also cinema, especially documentary filmmaking. I am teaching a course next term called War and Media. It thinks about the relationship between media and war sort of beyond the cinema. So the way that war and technology are sort of co-constitutive, and the ways that that has been theorized and thought of by critical scholarship for the last sort of century or so. So yeah, I would welcome applicants, PhDs, MPhils interested in any of those research interests. Thanks.
Thank you, Stefan. Let's talk about the MPhil a little bit more. So as Jonathan alluded to before, this is not a coding course. The idea isn't that you're coming here to receive a computer science degree by another name or a programming degree by another name, but is a mixture of methodology that really draws on an interdisciplinary tradition. The idea is that whilst you do develop skill sets within digital methods as well, that you're able to interrogate both the methods as well as the technologies that you use through those methods, and to also look at phenomenon that are based in the humanities from a critical digital humanities perspective. There's a lot of flexibility in terms of how what areas that you decide to cover within the research that you're carrying out throughout the MPhil. So you'll have a lot of research flexibility both within the coursework that you'll be assigned throughout the year, as well as through the dissertation. And as I said before, and as you can tell from my colleagues, there's a real diversity of disciplinary backgrounds within the kind of research that is carried out within Cambridge Digital Humanities, and that is as true for faculty as it is for the students that we've had come through. There are people who have chosen to do dissertations, for example, that follow a more of a traditional computational humanities path, in which computational methods are used to interrogate the humanities. One way in which that's done in really interesting and incisive ways include, for example, Ryan's research and some of the distant reading approaches that he alluded to before. But you could equally decide to go down the critique of technology route, in which you either use digital methods to interrogate the architecture, as it were, of the technology, or you opt out of entirely using digital methods, but are instead dealing with and dialoguing across critiques of technology. So you might think of surveillance studies as one particular example of this, but you might also think of other critiques of AI and discrimination as, for example, other aspects of doing that. As I mentioned before, a lot of it is research-led, so you'll be both learning from a team whose teaching is entirely research-informed, as well as from the content that you produce yourself. It will be on the premise that you are carrying out quite a bit of research as well. In terms of backgrounds, as all of my colleagues have stated, we've typically had people come from everything ranging from history, archaeology, sociology, literature, linguistics, computer science, economic, you name it. So there's no real requirement as for the kind of background that you come from as far as disciplinary tradition is concerned. We really do think that the digital humanities are enriched by having a multiplicity of disciplinary backgrounds within it. The degree itself will use materials that come from the libraries, the museums and collections, as well as other disciplines that intersect with digital humanities. So whatever background you have, wherever you come from, we're really interested in hearing from you and encourage you to apply. The main requirement is that you must have a good 2:1 honors degree, which is an average mark of 67 or more for your undergraduate degree in the British system. That's not to say that your undergraduate degree must be from the British system by any means. It's just to say that that is the equivalent. As far as pathways that are taken from digital humanities, from people that have come through Cambridge Digital Humanities, you could stay within digital humanities. It is a fast-growing area that's only becoming more relevant, and people choose to continue research either through affiliations with research institutions or through pursuing PhDs. You could return to your home discipline, as it were. For example, you might have come from sociology or media studies or English literature, and you wanted to hone particular skills in digital humanities to bring back to your discipline. That is equally valid as an approach. We have folks who go on to do policy advocacy and research that touches on DH themes. So in particular, we've had students who have wanted to better understand the implications as well as power dynamics involved within AI systems, and take that to a policy level, to think tanks, to human rights organizations and civil society organizations. And that's also a pathway that will be available to you, not to mention galleries, libraries, archives, museums, and digital media industry at large, at which, again, digital humanities remains as relevant as ever, if not more. I mentioned before, you could stay in Cambridge as well for pursuing a PhD in digital humanities, which we do offer as well. And for Those of you who are interested in that, again, you'll know we have more of this on our website, but we also have an info session for the PhD just after this session. The normal requirement is to have a 70 plus overall from your master's dissertation, from your master's degree, in order to proceed on to a PhD in digital humanities. So we have a lecture series that grapples with a number of different aspects of digital humanities that we make available as a part of the MPhil course, in addition to things like the CDH Open Research Seminars. This lecture series is a core part of the program. It's a core part of the learning program that you will be covering. In the past, they have included topics such as digital cities, the embodiment of the digital and its implications for digital theater, the political economy of large language models, the poetics of AI, technology and gender. So you really hopefully get a flavor for areas in which you can apply this thinking live as you're proceeding through the program. As Jonathan and Hugh mentioned before, we have 2 core courses as a part of your MPhil. The first one being Digital Humanities Approaches and Methods, which largely deals with getting to do, as it were, practice, digital methods practice. And then we have Core Course 2, in which you get to deal with the theoretical aspects of that. And so on the one hand, you get to build, and you get to deal with technical systems and interrogate things through digital methods. And on the other hand, you get to ask critical questions and draw on theories from a number of different disciplines and strands of thinking, including post-colonial theory, gender studies, critical media theory, about both the approaches that you learn from in Core Course 1, as well as wider technological applications and developments. We have optional courses that, sorry, I keep calling them optional courses. I mean to say they are options, as in you choose which ones to take on in Lent term, which is a second term in Cambridge. That includes digital and new media arts, so questions around how digital arts intersect with digital humanities, distant reading, which are theories and practices of reading literature using computers. We have digital visual cultures, emancipatory digital practices, global digital humanities, materialities of the digital forms, generative AI, historical data, and witnessing digital cities, amongst some of the courses that are offered in the Lent term coming up. These are subject to change, all depending on both capacity as well as who we have at the time in our faculty, but we expect to be offering these in this academic year. So there are a number of different components as a part of the MPhil. Of course, there's the Core Course 1 and 2 that we talked about. In the Lent term, you'll have an option course 1 and an option course 2 that you'll be taking. So have a look at the options as of now, I suppose, and see if there's anything interesting for you there. You'll be continuing the MPhil lecture series throughout both Michaelmas and Lent. And along the way, you'll be expected to take individual supervisions with your dissertation supervisor, who will be advising you along the process of doing your dissertation research and writing it up. Across both of those terms, you'll also be doing technical session drop-ins together with Jonathan, for example, in which you could be asking questions around particular digital methods or technical systems that you're looking to employ or think through as you're developing your research. And then, of course, we have the Cambridge Digital Humanities Open Research Seminars, which also continue, I should say, actually throughout all 3 terms rather than just Michaelmas and Lent. In the final term and Easter term, you'll be continuing your individual supervisions. Towards completing your dissertation, you'll be doing lots of research and lots of writing. And the idea is that by the end of it, you will have completed your dissertation and hopefully go on to graduate satisfactorily. In terms of assessment, you'll choose your topic in October for your dissertation. That may be subject to slight changes, but keep an eye out on the handbook in due course when you do make it. And then we'll have another opportunity to confirm those topics for your dissertation later on in Michaelmas. There will be a first essay that is due at the end of Michaelmas, which is about 2,000 words. And you'll be given a selection of questions to choose between writing your essay on. Then your essay 2, which is also 5,000 words. I should say, sorry, essay 1 is due in the mid Michaelmas. Essay 2 is due at the end of Michaelmas. It's 5,000 words on a chosen topic. And you'll deliver that at the end of Michaelmas and receive feedback on it shortly after that, which gives you the winter break and into the new year to continue work on your dissertations. You'll be finalizing your topic for your dissertation absolute final sign-off shortly after that. And then there will be one additional assessment going into Easter in addition to your dissertation, which is at the very, very end of Lent, which will be a 5,000-word essay 3 dissertation. From the end of Lent into the end of Easter, you'll be working on your dissertation or your portfolio, which is 12,000 words, and it's due at the end of the Easter term. So just to recap from before, essay 1 is 2,000 words, early November. The topic will be given, well, you will be choosing a topic on the basis of questions. You can still ground it in a quite broad range of different areas. The questions should be broad enough for you to do that, but you will be provided with questions. Essay 2 and essay 3 will be 5,000 words each, end of Michaelmas and Lent terms, respectively. They each count towards 20% of your final grade, essay 2 and essay 3. And essay 1 is pass or resubmit and doesn't count towards your final grade. Then for the portfolio and dissertation, just to go through the distinctions between the two. So you have a dissertation, which is 12,000 words. It's a substantial individual scholarly project. You're expected to use roughly 50% of your time on that research. And it should be asking / shedding new lights of questions in digital humanities scholarship and research, and it's probably the largest piece of work you've taken on so far. The portfolio is the same amount of work, but the format is different. So it includes a smaller dissertation of about 8,000 words, which reflects on theoretical and critical issues, as well as wider context and implications within the discipline, but it also includes a project report. So that's a description of what you practically undertook in the project. So that includes methodology, data, processes. You may decide, for example, that you want to put together a particular concoction of digital art, or you may decide that you want to engage in the process of producing a particular technical project or script. The idea here is that you do that and reflect on it and include that as a part of your project. So for those of you who want to do something that's slightly more hands-on but forms a part of your thesis, this is how to do that. So both the dissertation or portfolio can include technical appendices, videos, imagery, maps, sound, and we agree with the Postgraduate Studies Committee on what those appendices are. We can't mark them, but we can mark projects that use code. So some examples of dissertations within digital humanities include The Edges of Tango, a computational analysis of early 20th century tango sheet music for Cambridge University Library. POV, you're reading a paper on internet aesthetics, playlisting practices, and superculture. Materiality and experience, avatars in the archive, as well as meme proliferation and the far right, a study in collective identity and ideology on the internet. So as you can see, there's quite a bit of diversity in approaches using digital methodologies, using digital humanities to interrogate these phenomena. Okay, there are a number of different resources that will be available at your disposal when you enter Cambridge. That includes the Cambridge University Library resources. You can visit our site and learn more about that. And these will be available to you throughout your course. So should you want to interrogate particular collections, particular archives for your projects as well that are specific to Cambridge, that is a unique opportunity that you can take up while you're there. And they go beyond just a central university library. So do keep an eye out on that. So the dates here need to be slightly updated. The applications for the MPhil and PhD programs are open for the 25-26 academic year. The deadline for the GATE scholarship is usually mid-October for those of you that are applying for the US GATE scholarship in particular. The deadline for most other applications, including the non-US GATES deadline, is the 7th of January, is early January 2025. Around the 7th of January 2025, but I will just double check that at the end of this session. In terms of the application process, apply for the course. You apply for funding. Usually most of the funding that you'll be applying for is actually available within the application portal, the Cambridge University's application portal. But for the GATE scholarship, you'd need to submit at least one additional extra piece of application paperwork, and there will be some other applications that might require you to go through additional protocols, but a lot of the, if not most of the funding sources will be something you can tick yourself off for in the application process. The admissions will be taking place throughout early spring and beyond. In 2026, and you'll be given supervisor allocations in that summer based on your particular research and availability of our faculty, and then we'll welcome you to Cambridge in October 2026. As far as the application materials are concerned, we're looking at grade transcripts, language requirements. There's a language requirement, and you'll need to, depending on your background, as well as your nationality, provide language requirements as per Cambridge's requirements, and that will usually reflect an IELTS test or a TOEFL test or equivalent. The CV or resume is usually required as a part of the process. You'll need 2 academic references, a cover letter, and a research proposal of roughly 500 words for the MPhil, 800 words for the PhD. And then we'll ask for a sample of work. It can be a past essay, for example, of 3,000 to 5,000 words for the MPhil. If you have questions about the process or you're stuck somewhere along the line for the admissions process, you can drop us a line directly for CDH at mphil@cdh.cam.ac.uk. Or for admissions inquiries that are more general to the university, you can go to postgraduate.study.cam.ac.uk. Okay, hopefully see you all in Cambridge, but before we wrap the session, I think the important part of this is answering some questions. So I'm going to stop sharing my screens now and move over to the Q&A portion of this. Okay, so first question. Is the research summary different from the research proposal? For the research experience, which is optional, does this research have to be academic? A similar question, what kind of work should the sample of work be? So is the research summary different from the research proposal? The 500 words that we're asking for as a research proposal is that. For the research summary within the application portal, it'll reflect a shorter version of that. As far as the research experience is concerned, the research doesn't necessarily have to be academic, but the idea is that you'd be able to use it as a transferable skill, a competency in the academic environment. So as long as you can link it back to your study in digital humanities, that's great. As far as what kind of work a sample of work should be, Usually we're looking at past essays or articles of a similar variety that can demonstrate your written ability. Okay. Are there specified requirements for those with an MSc or an MA? There are no different requirements for those with an MSc or an MA than those we already have for the MPhil. So again, the grade requirements is the same. The requirements of the paperwork are also the same. So do consult those requirements and apply accordingly. Regarding the sample of work, are bibliographies included in the word count? Now, I'm going to ask my colleagues to jump in on this. My understanding is that bibliographies are not included in the word count. I see nodding heads, so we'll take that as ground truth.
Footnotes are included, but bibliographies aren't.
Footnotes are included, bibliographies aren't. Thank you, Lauren. For the academic resources, whether CDH collaborates with the Center of South Asian Studies, and if so, in what ways, since my research interests would benefit from both CDH and the Center's archival resource on South Asia. So I should say, and colleagues who have worked specifically with SAS, please do come in, but I should say that we encourage our students to also reach out and talk to other departments and faculties as a part of their research. So there's nothing standing in the way of you going directly to the Center of South Asian Studies and asking to either work with a particular academic who's based there, seeking their advice in relation to your project, nor is there anything getting in the way of you seeking out and using their resources. In some instances, there are MPhil lectures that are run out of other centers as well, in which you can ask to audit their lectures as a part of your research program. So know that that won't count towards you meeting the requirements of the CDH degree, but that it is an additional undertaking that you can take up for yourself. So that is definitely something that is available to you. But again, if colleagues have anything additional to say on the Center of South Asian Studies in particular, please do jump in now. No? Okay. 2 questions. Could I get a recording of the session, and are there research proposal examples I can read? Lauren, I am not entirely sure about this one. Do we know if we share the recording of these sessions?
I'm afraid I don't know. I'd have to find that out. If you want to, Miriam, if you want to drop an email to the MPhil email address that was shared earlier, which is also on the website, I will double check that for you and let you know.
Thank you, Lauren, and thank you, Miriam. I see we have 2 hands up, but I'm not convinced that we can actually, in this setting of webinar, hear or see people. So if I would encourage you to actually leave your questions within the Q&A box on the right-hand side, if you don't mind. While we wait for more questions to appear in the sidebar, I just want to invite my colleagues to jump in if there is anything you'd like to clarify before we reach the end of this session. Jonathan.
Matt, I think there are more questions, but if you refresh the Q&A, they should come up.
Perfect. Great. Yeah, I see them now. Okay. How many words are characteristic or characters for the covering letter or personal statement? I will come back to this one. Would it be possible to arrange for my research to be linked to my current job role, i.e. the research happens in work and I carry on part-time working? We have had instances before in which students have come through CDH and they have carried on part-time working, but it should be clear that that introduces a number of challenges. In particular, the university and the college that you're affiliated with may have particular stipulation around work alongside study, so you should consult that. And also, importantly, where students have relied on their part-time workplace to offer, for example, research data for their research area within the degree, there have sometimes been tensions that have led to data access being revoked, which has, for example, had harmful and difficult consequences and implications for being able to carry out the dissertation work. So I would really encourage you to really think about the feasibility of doing that. Jonathan, I see you unmuted. Did you want to jump in here?
It's not on that specifically, Matt. Sorry, I was going to ask a question if we've run out of other questions, but sorry, carry on.
All good. Okay, we have a question here. As an international applicant with a TOEFL score of 109, meeting the minimum section requirement of 25, would it be advisable to submit the score with my application, or should I consider retaking the test to reach 110? Lauren, maybe this one is for you.
The language requirement is very strict, and it does say that you need a minimum of 110 for the TOEFL score overall. So I would advise that you do look to retake it to meet that minimum standard.
Thank you, Lauren. Okay, we have another question. Should we approach any of the CDH faculty prior to applying for the MPhil to align our interests? And must the sample of work be just one article that contains 3,000 to 5,000 words, or can it be several articles grouped to reach the word count? So I should clarify that we don't necessarily encourage you to reach out to MPhil, to the faculty at CDH prior to applying for the MPhil, as the connection that you have with the faculties will not necessarily reflect the supervisor that you end up with. Of course, you're at liberty to reach out to colleagues, and as and when they have capacity, they would do their best to respond. But I should just clarify that just because you reach out to a supervisor, it doesn't mean that that is a supervisor that you'll end up with. There are capacity constraints, and there are multiple different faculty members and may also overlap with you on a particular topic area. So, and those allocations are not actually made till this summer, just before you start. So if you're hoping to work closely with a particular faculty member, this is not the way to necessarily achieve that. Could you please clarify if all applications are uniformly reviewed after the deadline? I'm not sure I fully understand. I suppose the question is whether we review all applications all together after the deadline. The answer to which is yes, we do. We do them in batches, but we do them roughly around the same time. Does the faculty maintain a suggested reading list for someone new to DH, or any pointers to a good intro? So we do share a suggested reading list in advance of starting the MPhil program, but I don't know if any of my colleagues have any particular reading lists or resources that they would want to share in advance. Or
I put in a comment a link to the online book Debates in Digital Humanities, which is a pretty good introduction of some of the topics, concerns, debates in the field. And that should link to other articles, other books, you know, that would get you started. So I'd recommend looking at that.
Great. Thank you so much, Ryan. There's a question about, can I put a sample of work that is my research paper where other people are on the paper? I am the first author. I don't see why not, though. If you do have a paper that comes from you only as a sole author, it would reflect better, as it will reflect just your writing, which is what you're trying to demonstrate within the course of the application process. But if it is the only thing that you have at hand, then that makes sense. Is there a specific requirement for styles of bibliography for the writing sample? No. Please use whatever writing sample that you have at your avail already. We will not be policing your bibliographies for the writing sample. Okay. Are there any questions that remain unanswered from the perspectives of my colleagues here? Anyone want to reflect on anything before we reach a close?
There's a
I think
question.
there are even a
There's
few
more
more.
questions.
Yeah, there's 3 more, I think.
I think my team.
I think Ryan's already answered one of them.
Perfect. Thank you, Ryan. How much scope is there to revise your research proposal once you started the course? Once you start the course, you do have maneuverability as far as changing your research proposal, and especially in the beginning, as you'll be learning across a whole bunch of new materials. And so the expectation is that you would maybe slightly adjust, and in conversations with your supervisor as well, see what is actually feasible within the timeline that you're working with. So it is fully expected that you would submit a refined research proposal once you're here. So don't think that what you're submitting from the beginning will be necessarily something that you are 100% wedded to at the end of the day. But I would say that once you've chosen their direction in collaboration with your supervisor, that we highly recommend that you stay on course, as the MPhil programs are notoriously short, and maximizing the research time you have with the specified research proposal is really encouraged.
There's a question about funding, Matt. Just asking about, it's a general one, just saying, could you talk more about funding? I'm looking for a scholarship.
Yeah, so I don't see the question, but I can speak broadly on funding. So we have a number of different bodies around Cambridge that offer scholarships. In particular, I mentioned the Cambridge Gates Trust, which is a part of the Gates Scholarship that runs both US specific scholarships and non-US specific scholarships. They have a slightly earlier deadline of October for US applicants and January for non-US applicants, and it is considered a fairly generous scholarship, but is also a highly competitive one. Would encourage applicants to definitely ensure that they fill out the additional paperwork required to be considered for the Gates Scholarship. That's actually also available on the applicant's portal. So once you start submitting your MPhil application, you'll see that there is a tick box for the Gates Scholarship in which you are asked to submit an additional personal statement. So keep that in mind and do plan early when you are applying for the program. We also have the Cambridge Trust scholarships, which are across a number of different domains. I should mention that the Cambridge Trust Foundation also supports a number of studentships that are for students who come from challenging backgrounds or contexts. In particular, we have a rich tradition of providing scholarships for students that come from contexts of conflict and displacement. They're known as the Rowan Williams scholarships. And they're also scholarships that you would be automatically considered for by ticking the box on the applicant's on the applications portal. I should mention that there are colleges that also offer scholarships that both you're automatically considered for as you go into the pool for being designated a college, and some of them may require for you to carry out additional work. There is a centralized scholarship search website for Cambridge in which you can go in and write your particular circumstances, and it'll give you an overview of the scholarships that are available for you, and you can browse how you could be considered for those. Many of those you'll be considered for automatically through the applicant portal. Some of them you'll need to fill in additional paperwork. Sorry, does that answer the question? Lauren, do you think we're missing anything on this? Okay. I unfortunately believe we have reached the end of the session, and we have to promptly move into the next session for the PhD. If you have any further questions, please do feel free to email us at mphil@cdh.cam.ac.uk. Any remaining questions that you may have, and thank you so much for joining us for today's session.